Let's talk about Virgie Tovar and why I don't align with her as a psychologist. Hi, I'm Maria Paula Bermeo, clinical psychologist, and on this channel we talk about everything related to, of course, psychology. So if you're interested, please keep on watching. Before starting this video, I want to remind you that I give in-person therapy. And if you're out of the city, I got you because I also give online therapy. So if you need a consultation, please feel free to reach me out on my social media, my phone number, my email. All of them will be listed down below on the description box as well. But before that, really quick, again, I hope you had a Merry Christmas and that you will have a happy New Year's Eve and New Year. Let me know what you did for Christmas and what do you plan to do for New Year's Eve as well. I want to know. Leave a comment down below. Have you heard about Virgie Tovar? If you haven't, well, Virgie is a very popular fat activist on social media. She went viral years ago after posting a video called Take the Cake, which is not on her channel anymore because it has been wiped, but internet prints last forever, so here are a few clips of said video.
If you're like many women, you've been to a birthday party or a small office gathering, an event that's meant to bring people together. There's swinging tunes, some adult beverages, and good convo. And then it comes time to cut the cake, and someone decides to ruin everything.
Oh my God, that slice is huge. That slice is bigger than Beyonce's paycheck. Can you cut me half of that?
A cake-related fatphobic incident, or CRFI, is that moment when it's time to eat delicious cake and it's interrupted by a moralizing impulse. Inevitably, there's always someone at the party who has to declare publicly that their slice is too large and that the person who's cutting the cake, almost invariably a woman, must do some disproportionate amount of labor in order to accommodate their need to feel superior.
You like scrape all the frosting off and cut it in half and give me 2 forks because I'm sharing.
So, like a little bit more, like tiny, no, like less than what you're smaller, please.
Could you just cut my piece into 12 equal symmetrical little pieces and put each one into a tiny little Tupperware so that I can have a bite for each month of 2018? Thanks.
CRFIs typically happen in environments where there are primarily or exclusively women. Women are disproportionately negatively affected by diet culture because diet culture maps onto sexism. Like many parts of diet culture, there is a significant performance component. You have to show others that you are being good. Controlling how much you eat is part of what it means to be a, quote, good woman. This kind of behavior is a way for people to keep other people in check through food moralizing, surveillance, and policing.
This video was my introduction to Virgie Tovar. As a psychologist, it would be considered like my first interview session with her, so there were a few traits of her character that I was able to point out back then already. A person with many insecurities she tries to mask with narcissism, hence why she thinks the whole world needs to revolve around her and act however she wants them to act like. I have talked about body positive people here on the channel a few times, but this video sums up many of the typical behaviors they have, as being entitled to the point they think they can dictate the way we all think and react just because they are from a minority. Virgie saying you shouldn't ask for a smaller piece of cake because you will ruin the whole party is the perfect way to portray it, meaning that she suffers from many cognitive distortions. Selective abstraction because she decided to solely focus on the poor woman that wanted a smaller piece of cake. Magnification because she made a huge deal out of that simple thing. Overgeneralization because she believes that everyone that takes care of themselves are victims of diet culture, and in women's case of sexism as well. And for that, we could also say she's convinced she can read people's minds because she's jumping into conclusions about someone's ideologies just for a simple event as rejecting a bigger slice of cake. And this is why, as a mental health provider, I can assure that people like Virgie are so prone to suffer from anxiety and emotional dysregulation, which causes stress, insecurity, and more. Because this type of people is the one that is continuously comparing themselves to others for the worst. That is always in a state of alert because they think everyone is criticizing them, and it explains why they are so overreactive and defensive whenever someone makes a comment about health and wellness, even if it's not directed to anyone. But continuing with Virgie herself, I can see she's very into rationalizing her arguments to explain why she is a fat activist, even when they really make no sense. Hence why I see her as a very delusional human being. Let me show you some of her views to understand why. This wall comparison was the topic of a conference to educate people about fatphobia, which I had to watch for this video. And in summary, for her, grape and fatphobia are related because both refer to women's oppression, to the normalization of assault and misogyny, again, delusional and out of place. Virgie, as a feminist herself, should acknowledge that labeling fatphobia to SA is literally making fun of actual victims. Because being fat is generally a choice, being grape is not. You cannot compare the two in any way. And if that isn't crazy enough, she has also compared fatphobia to racism. It still doesn't make sense. Fat activists do say that fatphobia is founded on racism, but sincerely, it isn't logical. What if a black man is dieting and exercising because he wants to look better? What if a mixed race woman is dieting for health reasons? Is that racist too? Even if they are part of the groups that would suffer from racism, wouldn't you be the racist one if you tell them they shouldn't diet because they would be going against the race? Those weak morals are unbelievable. She has also said that eating is guided by necropolitics, which means that the political environment gaslight us into living in a certain way. But if anything, I should say that politics are more inclined for Virgie's ideas. Politics these days are more woke and inclusive, drawn into acceptance, especially for minorities, as fat positive people. Meaning that if we really want to talk about necropolitics, well, those are actually telling us that it is okay to be morbidly obese and that no one should judge us for that. But I don't think she would admit that because her entire facade is based in being oppressed, not the oppressor. Virgie has also heavily contributed to some articles about body positivity, as this one, Real Women Have Curves, in which she talks about the power of plus-size women. It's great to have realistic bodies in the media, so women, especially young women, know they shouldn't submit themselves into unhealthy habits to reach unachievable beauty standards that promote eating disorders. I'll always be in favor of that. But I need to emphasize the realistic bodies part, meaning that sure, a 175 meter, 40 kilogram body is usually not healthy, but neither is a 300-pound one. Both are equally unhealthy and unrealistic, and neither are body positive, objectively speaking, because none of those bodies are being taken care of, no matter what you say. Talking about my field, both have plenty of mental health repercussions. In one, the brain shrinks, in other, the brain swellens. Both bring hormonal imbalances, which are reflected on emotional dysregulation, anxiety, reactiveness, a decline on information processing and retentive memory, short attention spans, depression, isolation, hypersomnia, insomnia, personality disorders, and I could go by the entire day mentioning even more consequences because both are equally unhealthy. And I couldn't let something slide, which again is Virgie's selective abstraction. Real women have curves. For her, it's only about plus-size people. What about naturally thin women that may not have big boobs or a big butt? Aren't they real women too? Where's the body positive aspect of your movement? She won't mention skinny people because it's not convenient for her. Obese people are the victims script, which shows her hypocrisy because she won't use the message all bodies are beautiful when it doesn't benefit her. Now, there has been some clips resurfacing on the internet from a podcast she did 2 years ago, so I thought it would be great to include them and analyze them as well.
Should I take, I feel like shoes off for
Do you want to take your shoes off?
right?
I'm down.
Shoes off. I can understand she wanted to feel as comfy as possible to talk about sensitive topics for her, but there are moments and places to do so. an interview not being one of them. You might tell me, well, the host said it was okay. I mean, he probably didn't want to mess up the interview, so he said, great, shoes off, to not lose his guest. But the fact that she just wants to be barefoot from the beginning is just her showing her narcissism, her need to own the place and feel dominant, to show that she is the leader so her words cannot be contradicted, which in this environment makes sense because she's going on an interview to educate people about fat phobia and fat acceptance.
Can you talk more about the difference between maybe fat phobia and fat activism and maybe the intersections between the two?
Yeah, so I mean, fat phobia is a form of bigotry, right? And a lot of people don't know that because we've been taught that our attitudes towards higher weight people are rightfully negative because of health reasons, right? And so we've got this. I could go into this for a million years. I will parenthetically say that our notion of health is deeply flawed, problematic, and kind of living in the 1800s. Like the BMI was invented in the 1800s, okay?
By European men.
But yeah, by like this Belgian mathematician. He wasn't even a physician, and he ended up becoming the grandfather of eugenics. So like just to contextualize how we're defining health, it's by a Belgian mathematician from 1830 who was the grandfather of eugenics. So end parentheses. So, right? Like in fact, fat phobia is an actual legitimate form of discrimination. It aligns with other types of discrimination, like around race or gender or any number of marginalized identities, in the sense that it's largely a belief system that isn't really based in evidence or data or science, but that is socially condoned and creates an idea of some people are better than others, right? And so fat phobia manifests in a lot of different ways, like everything from a wage gap, like plus size women make $9,000 to $19,000 less per year than straight size women. There's also well-documented medical discrimination and things like things we all know, like how higher weight people are considered less appealing partners, less appealing dates. So there's all these different, obviously fashion, like there's all different ways that fat phobia manifests, and it's legal in 48 out of 50 states. So just to be clear, like you can be overtly fired for your weight and get in absolutely no trouble in 48 out of 50 states. So that's that. I mean, fat activism is sort of the response to fat phobia. It's essentially kind of an intersectional politic that looks at fat phobia and says, this is wrong. There's nothing wrong with being fat. This is totally a natural part of body diversity. Yes, fat people have thriving, wonderful, beautiful lives. Yes, fat people are desirable. And absolutely fat people should be protected from things like medical discrimination and the wage gap. So like that's what those two things are. Like one is the problem and fat activism is the response.
The host enabling her is just off, seriously. But again, you can see how she's always looking for arguments to defend her stubborn views, even saying that there haven't been studies that prove obesity is unhealthy when the research is huge. She doesn't acknowledge why obese people are not usually hired or receive lower payments, as that they cannot move a lot, so they are not able to do many tasks and may slow the speed and efficacy of the companies. She again plays the victim by saying fat people are seen as less desirable, that are shamed, as if skinny shaming didn't exist as well. Raw denial and rationalization. She is blindsided.
I want to talk about that question, but I want to start by saying that, no one has to be healthy. No, right? Like, I mean, it's like, no, like there is no governing body that's like out there putting, you know what I mean? It's like no one owes anybody that in either the traditional sense of the word or any other more innovative or, more politicized, maybe even version of that word. So I think it's important to say like, and I want to back up and bring in intersectionality and say like, right, like look at the disabled community, right? Like I think people with disabilities and activists within that space have consistently been saying like, I'm never going to be your notion of healthy. That doesn't mean I don't get to be a full human. You get to treat me some kind of way, right? And so I think that I love taking that principle within disability rights to fat activism and to understandings of fatness. So I want to start there, right? Like no matter what size you are, you don't owe anybody else your health.
No one needs to be healthy. Then why is she trying to convince us being obese is healthy? Why is she advocating for health at every size? I don't get it. And again, she's trying to level up obesity with disabilities. And I have to repeat, obesity is most likely a choice. Disabled people don't have the chance to choose to be disabled, but she's doing that to portray a disadvantaged image to empathize with people, which is a joke for people with actual health issues that they don't decide if they want to suffer from or not. But as a great narcissist she has to manipulate people in the most illogical ways to make everything about her.
When I was researching this, the word fat itself, it's like uncomfortable sometimes for people to say.
Yeah.
You have said I am fat or fat phobia, like all these things, but for some people, it's almost like I feel like my fat phobia doesn't even allow me to say the word fat.
Right.
I'm afraid to say it.
Yeah, 100%.
So when did you stop seeing the word fat as a bad word and take the power back into that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the complexity around the feeling, it's important to be curious about that. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I love that you pointed out that it is fat phobia. It's it's the idea that to be fat is unspeakable, and that's what makes it so complicated. I love that you brought that up.
Say that again, to be fat. It's just, I need everyone that's that little quote, to be fat is unspeakable.
Right, 100%. And that's where that discomfort comes from.
Virgie, you and your group are the ones that made fat a bad word because you took that as offensive, but you are blaming others to say, oh, I owe the word fat, and don't assume the responsibility you have towards fat being an insult. Fat is just a description. You made it have a bad meaning. But also, I still have seen that you don't really owe fat, because whenever someone that is not obese calls you fat, you still get offended and call them fatphobic, which explicitly shows your cognitive dissonance. That deep in your mind, you know you are not healthy and that you're just promoting dysfunctional behaviors and ideas that long term will affect you significantly. But why am I talking about Virgie? Why am I psychoanalyzing her, and why is it so important? Well, because our friend Virgie has been hired as a consultant on weight stigma and weight neutrality for the San Francisco Department of Public Health. Daily Mail reported that San Francisco hires taxpayer-funded weight stigma czar Virgie Tovar. The San Francisco Department of Public Health has hired a consultant on weight stigma and weight neutrality, despite the city in the midst of a battle against rampant homelessness, open-air drug use, and violent crime. Virgie Tovar, self-described anti-weight-based discrimination expert, describes herself as a prominent advocate for fat positivity and body acceptance, announcing her appointment on her Instagram. She called it an absolute dream come true. Okay. So first, it is ironic that despite the city having plenty of other and more important issues to solve, they decided to hire a body positive activist with taxpayer money. I think the citizens have other urgent needs as security. However, there is something else that I need to talk about and more related to my field. What is a fat positivity activist doing on a health department? She shouldn't be there. Just for the fact that obesity is linked to many psychological diseases should tell them why. But if we talk about the mental health aspect, obesity is not a contributor to it. It's a trigger for a lot of mental illnesses, and a health department should know that. Starting from the limited mobility obese people have, did you know that causes them a lot of stress and tension? For them, it's not joyful to suffer from constant body pain. It is annoying. Obese people tend to suffer from severe self-esteem issues, yes, because of their body image, but also because they cannot do a lot of things on their own. They need help, and for that, they feel like a burden. They feel unaccomplished, limited, dependent, unproductive, hence why they lack from any purpose in life, and their motivation is almost non-existent. And that enhances symptoms of anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, if not attempts. Obese people have a lot of issues in their social life because they usually feel extremely judged by the people surrounding them, even when that is not true, which could be related to social anxiety. They again feel like a burden, and they prefer to not go to friends or family gatherings to not bother the rest of the people. They tend to be really moody and irritable, and they are conscious that not everyone is going to stand that, so they rather isolating, which is detrimental for their mental health. They are often tense and scared because they know they have plenty of health issues, to the point that they are just expecting their sudden death. Do you think it's healthy for a human being to be fully paranoid, waiting for the moment they pass away? That is not optimal at all. Do you know their brain is messed up? Their hormones are all over the place, hence why they usually have dopamine rapid breaks and insane drops, which causes their emotional instability, and that is why they are usually done with life. And did you know because of that, they also feel the need to constantly eat, making it more likely a binge eating disorder? And did you know many of these people depend on food as comfort because they have suffered from traumatic experiences as SA, violence, or parental neglect? And instead of promoting body positivity as the way to heal, you should advocate for them to reach out for mental health support to recover from said trauma instead of promoting an ideology that for sure will harm them even more long term than doing any good. As a psychologist, to me, it is really frustrating to see that the ones that are in charge of health in reality are the ones enabling diseases for the sake of whatever sick agenda they have. Health is an integral aspect. We cannot only focus in one thing. For our brain to be great, our body needs to be great too, and vice versa, which won't happen with obesity. That is why we as a society really need to open our eyes and call these people out for the sake of our real health and well-being, both physical and psychological. Is there something you learned from this video or something that you would like to add to the conversation? Leave a comment down below. Also, don't forget to like and share with someone that may find this useful. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you never miss out for more interesting psychology content. Thanks for watching.